Hi, I'm Teresa Duncan.
And I'm Kevin Henry.
Welcome to Chew on This.
We are excited to bring you our views of current topics in the dental industry and put a little different spin on them, giving you something to chew on.
If you need to jump off, be sure to check the show notes for links as well as how to get in touch with us.
And now, let's give you something to chew on.
And we are back with another edition of Chew on This. K-Dog, what's up?
Teresa, I'm up a little higher today than normal, up in beautiful Breckenridge, Colorado at 9,000 feet. But you know, some would say that's high, but I bet, as Creed would say, you could take me higher.
Oh my gosh. You went total like classic rock elevator music type reference there. So, dear listeners, you know how we are known for taking you on adventures along with us. We're going to take you to space today.
Ooh.
And again, Kevin, I have to say this article, very, very interesting. Cannot wait to link it in the show notes. And I am going to go ahead and share the screen because honestly, it's just amazing.
We're preparing for blast off right here. It's going to be awesome.
You know, it's just wild because, look, listeners, we go to the journal Curious, which is actually spelled Cureus. So, you know, very clever there. What am I talking about? We're going to space. We're going to space. Okay, so this article here, I'm so excited. This article is called Smile Beyond the Stars, a narrative review exploring the challenges for dentistry in space. So for all of you who are thinking about, you know, I probably could add another location onto our practice, let me give you the pros and cons of whether or not you can go to space. So operating a practice in space, the pros, we don't have a tax system up there yet. So pretty much everything is yours. That's what I like. Cons, yeah, lots of cons.
Yes, I'm thinking of a few right now. Yes, absolutely.
First of all, travel, parking is really bad. So I'll tell you that. Like, you know, how do you find a space? You got to circle the planet a couple times. No, but seriously, this article actually, Kevin, this like spoke to the geek in me because what this did, the authors took a look at the effects of being in space on existing dental work and on the oral cavity. So if you are living in space, imagine that you have gone to space on, you know, SpaceX, right? So Elon Musk got you to pay some money. You went up into the stars and you're like, ooh, why is my tooth hurting? And then you land on some Mars colony and then you're like, oh, wow, there's only one dentist in the area. This kind of stinks. How are your teeth going to react? So again, this is just super. So here's what,
you know, that dentist is out of network. That's the worst thing, right? I
mean, totally out of network. Total fee for service. Yeah, it's terrible. So got to pay like in moon rocks and stuff like that. Okay, so what are the effects of space on teeth? So some of this is kind of scary, you guys, because what it does is your body is subject to microgravity. So what this means is that like it's not just gravity, it's microgravity, meaning like even on like a micro level, you've got gravitational forces. There is some gravity, right? Like they have the gravity machine that's in there, but for the most part, you're not subject to gravity. So the problem is that your body and bodily fluids work on gravity. And so the problem here, you don't have the same salivary flow, Kevin, which I know you're very concerned with. And so
that's why I get drinks. I'm telling you. Yes,
exactly.
Absolutely.
You got to keep that going. And in fact, I think on our last episode, we talked about you shouldn't know like mistakes we make. And one of them is after you drink something acidic, you should chew gum. Remember that?
That's right. Yes, I do.
And it was to get the salivary flow going. So what happens when you don't have a lot of saliva going around? Here is basically the issue. And for those of you who are audio only, we've got a big chart up that lists a couple different conditions, which I'll go into, not ad nauseum, just touch on it a little bit. So you basically have decrease in salivary flow rate, which then allows for a higher bacterial load because some bacteria likes it when there's not a lot of saliva there and likes it when it's anaerobic too. So you got a higher risk of caries, higher bacterial load, which then is going to lead to higher incidences of periodontal disease and of course your cavities. So then that leads to overall compromised immunity, the increased risk of Odontocrexis, which was a totally new word for me. And we're going to get to that in a second.
Oh, good.
I know, vocabulary time. But here's what's really wild. When your body doesn't have the salivary flow and the blood flow. So the blood flow, when you have bone, like our bodies are full of bone, your blood continually flushes your bone with cells that break down bone, but also create more bone. Okay. If you don't have the creating bone cells, then you have a decrease in bone level. So that's why you lose bone osteoporosis. So when you go, there's been studies, and I know this just from being a woman and worried about osteoporosis, like astronauts have a higher incidence of osteoporosis because of this. They actually lose bone mass. Well, for your jaw, which is two bones like coming together, you can actually have a decrease in the temporomandibular joint. Like that could actually be compromised and get smaller. Now, I think you'd have to be up there for a long time, but that's kind of scary, Kevin, that whole thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, about space that I'm not thrilled about. And after hearing you talk about this, I'm like, I'm probably good. I'm probably A-okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I gave you a birthday present of going to space, you'd probably be like, nah, I'm good.
If it's one of those things that because I know there's a certain atmospheric level that you can get to, and technically you're in space, and I'll be like, okay, I'll do that. Just get me up that much. Perfect.
But I don't even know if you want to do that because
talk to me.
Odontocrexis, which is spelled Odonto, okay, odonto, and then Crexis is Crexis. For those of you who are listening to this audio only, it's on the screen if you're on video. Odontocrexis is awful, Kevin. Refers to the phenomenon where pre-existing dental restorations, such as fillings or crowns, may fail when exposed to high altitude environments. I mean, you're sitting in Breckenridge right now. Like at any moment, you could have.
My fillings just fly out. That's just how quick it'll happen.
This is in the article. You're going to die. It actually says there's unintentional expansion of gases trapped beneath your restorations. Okay.
Oh, geez.
Do you have crowns and fillings? Do you have any crowns?
I do. Yes.
Oh,
yes,
boy,
I do.
Trouble.
So, yeah. So, see? Wow.
Well, our editor is going to have to remove any gore that happens on the screen.
All sorts of gases just going out.
The increased pressure, Kevin, can lead to what is colloquially known as tooth explosion, where the restoration is forcefully dislodged from the tooth due to gas expansion. Okay, this is a thing. I'm not making this up. Tooth explosion. So when exposed to high altitude, pre-existing leaky restoration. So if your dentist is terrible, Kevin, if you got a bad dentist and got these leaky restorations, or if you've got recurrent decay going on under there, it might induce a tooth explosion due to the inadvertent expansion. I mean, when is there an inadvertent expansion of gas trapped behind the restorations, right? So I'm just saying. Okay, so you and I fly a lot.
Yeah.
What happens if you hear a little next to you?
The 14-hour flight to South Africa, I'm very curious now. I'm a little nervous. Maybe I should stop over a couple of times to, make sure that I don't have tooth explosion before I go speak at the dental meeting there.
This is terrifying. I mean, honestly, I was like, ooh, teeth in space. I can't wait to read it, right? And then this, I wish I had never read the word Odontocrexis because it's terrifying. So I have a crown and I have, I think, 2 fillings in there. I do not need this. This is not on my bucket list of things to enjoy in my life.
I'm going back to that fee-for-service dentist that's on the moon or Mars or where we were a few minutes ago. Because he or she's probably got it pressurized there in the dental office, and you're good. But the minute you walk out, tooth explosion. If they didn't do it properly, you don't have to wonder. It's like, oh, yeah, they missed a spot.
So you know how some dentists, after they do a root canal, because also there was an effect on root canals. I'll talk about that in a second. You do a root canal, you do a crown, you take an x-ray just to make sure everything's seated and everything looks good. Well, instead of taking an x-ray, you just go, hey, go out, walk outside. Just walk outside for a second.
No, I missed something. Sorry. Come on back in. Yeah, and now we're going to have to start over. Plus, I got to rebuild your jaw. But other than that, it's going to be great.
Dr. Henry, we have a problem.
There's where you don't want to be the dental assistant. Is it right there? It's like, sack it, dog. Now I got to rebuild this.
I love it. So we have to listen for these little, because when you say tooth explosion, I'm thinking explosion, but it really wouldn't be an explosion. It would be more like a pop. Yeah. And usually when I hear a pop on a plane, it's because the guy next to me did something that I'm going to feel like about a couple minutes later, right? I'm going to experience a couple minutes later.
That's advertent gas. See, that's what that is.
Noxious advertent gas. So, which is why most women will carry a scarf on the plane because of things like this. We go total face covering. I don't know what you guys do. Do you guys just go, oh, buddy, what do you do?
I always just point at the other people and go, oh, dude, but.
Do you do the thing where did your dad ever used to say, did you see that mouse or that elephant? Did you see that elephant across the floor? Like
Oh, no, let's hear this.
like,
What?
yeah, no, like, when he would,
Oh, got it. No,
erupt, have his
no,
own
no.
explosion, so to say.
No, always blame the dog, though. Always
Oh,
blame the
he
dog.
did that
Yeah,
too. He
always
did
blame
that
the
too.
dog.
He'd always just go, oh, did you see that mouse? That's a big mouse. What? So if any of you have little kids, go ahead and blame it on mice. And that'll keep them busy, because then I would go and look for this small elephant or mouse, whatever he decided to say. And
That's
that would probably
fantastic.
take up about 20 minutes. So actually really smart in hindsight that I would
That's
go looking for
fantastic.
this
I love
thing.
that.
Yeah, right. And how stupid am I that I'm looking for something that emits inverted noxious gas? All right. So, and then the other piece. So, let's talk about endo. The thing is, when you do a root canal, you got to really seal all those roots. Like, there could be like a micro space, right? Like, this really scares me. At any rate, the cements that they use, basically, they are subject to micro leakage, which is another word I didn't want to know either. And that is prone to failure under simulated space conditions because of the pressure fluctuations. So, they also had oral surgery considerations, because basically, as you mentioned, but in the pregame, going underwater, like, it subjects you to a lot of pressure, barometric pressure. Going high altitude, the same thing. So with oral surgery, you would also have issues with the sinus area. Like, if you did a surgery and you extracted and it went into the sinuses, now you got to worry about that. And then I'm going to give you another vocabulary word here, Kevin. Are you ready?
Okay, bring it.
This may be the most educational edition of Chew on This ever. Barodontalgia.
Ooh.
Barodontalgia is a toothache caused by a variation in barometric pressure. Okay, so
Wow.
the pain is sharp or squeezing in nature. So it also occurs on ascending and descending. So during a flight, it's associated with vital pulp tissue. So if you're going up and you have this toothache, your tooth is alive, but it's hurting. And on descent, it's associated with pulp necrosis, which is your tooth is pretty much dead, dying. That's
Wow.
wild. Yeah,
Wow.
that's really, I never knew that. So it's really wild. Okay, so basically, if anything pops when you're up in the air, that's the tooth explosion. But if anybody like totally screams in pain, that's barodontalgia, in ascend and descend. I'm telling you, I learned so much with this article. I can't wait for you all to read it. And basically, we are going to have to innovate if we are indeed going to have space colonies. We're going to have to innovate and make sure that we can, in all seriousness, handle the decreased saliva, the micro leakages, all of the technology, all of the materials that we use right now. A lot of the people, the sales reps will tell you, there's zero leakage and everything's, I mean, if you're not telling the truth, if your rep is embellishing, people's tooth are going to explode.
So how soon until a Kettenbach or a Shofu or a GC or somebody says safe enough for space? And that's their whole tagline.
And you know what? I would consider that the gold standard.
Ooh.
So I would say to my dear employer, is that crown, like, if I went to space tomorrow, would that crown be okay? And if he looks at me like the dog, like with a question, like, what? Huh? I got to choose a new dentist. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm
dropping that one. Next time I go in, I'm going to be like, I'm thinking about going up to Skylab. I just want to make sure. And I know Skylab still isn't up there. I don't want to hear any nasty comments from listeners. So
listen,
I know.
Is there another specialty then for space dentistry? That's another consideration.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, you got to think about space wisdom teeth.
So listen, if you go to battle and you're in the military, right, and you go off to battle, you've got to have your teeth checked out to make sure you don't have like an impending doom on one of them, like a root canal that's ready to burst, right? Yeah. I mean, seriously, we live near Fort Belvoir. We used to like sign off on that stuff all the time. And that's something that, like, if you go to space, now I'm wondering, like on Cape Canaveral or at SpaceX, like before the astronauts go up, what is that? What do they look at it? Can you only have virgin teeth, right? Like,
you can't go to space because you have a root canal left. So sorry.
See?
Wow.
See?
Things to
that
think
Laffy
about.
Taffy you loved in high school?
Came back to haunt you, didn't it? Laffy Taffy.
So yes, dear listeners, I mean, I don't think I'm going to space in my lifetime ever. No. So if any of you are so inclined and you do make it to space, circle back to us, because we'd like to hear what's going on with those chompers, the space chompers.
I just wonder what generation will be like, oh yeah, we've got a colony up there now. It's just fascinating to think about, seriously.
Yeah, like instead of Mardi Gras in New Orleans, it's Mars de Gras, like, right? Like, we're going to Mars. Ooh.
Look at you, see?
Do you remember when Julia started driving and
Oh, yeah.
Noah started driving? Like they would go out at night, right? And I would say, I kind of want to know where you're going, but I kind of don't. So like if they do go to Mars or wherever, I don't know if I want to know. Like just tell me
Yeah.
you're going to Myrtle Beach or something.
Mars, Myrtle Beach, both start with M. It's fine. It's
Don't
fine.
post anything until you get home and I know you're like on the ground, because if I find out you went to space and didn't tell me, I'm going to lose my mind a little bit.
Why is your Instagram from Mars? I'm just curious right now.
What's this location? What crater is this?
Exactly.
What is that? All right. So, Kevin, I think I'm ready to come down from space. Where are we going now?
Well, let's splash down. What do you say? Let's splash down in the ocean. Oh, somewhere near, I don't know. How about Australia?
Oh, I like Australia.
I would love to go to Australia. They've got big spiders and things. Would you rather go to space, knowing your teeth may explode, or rather just wander around Australia, like out in the bush for a day?
Yeah, because seriously, those spiders are huge.
The Naked and Afraid shows where they've been in Australia. Oh, I'm just telling you.
Well, and they've got the koala bears that are evil. Like they're mean. They are. Like when they're not high, they're mean, is what I hear. And they also have chlamydia. You knew that, right?
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah. So for those of you who like grew up with stuffed koala bears and you're like, oh my God, they're so cute. No, those stuffed animals are not true to nature because they would come with huge sores on them. That's how disgusting these are. I'm sorry.
No, I just love the line of, if they're not high, they're evil, because that can apply to a lot of people. Let's be honest. So anyway,
we do know people like that. That is
we
true.
do actually.
Kangaroos are aggressive down there.
They are.
So
absolutely.
you raise a good point. I mean, if I've only got a crown and 2 fillings, that's 3 tooth explosions that I could risk. But if I go to Australia, I could be like eating a lot. Oh, and they got serious crocodiles down there. I don't know. I'm kind of rethinking this whole line here.
And to all our Aussie friends, we love your country, but as well as we do, it could be a scary place. Let's be perfectly honest here.
We did it again, Kevin. We totally alienated
We did. We
nation.
lost a continent. I mean, we lost a whole continent right there. That's hard work. But I'm going to try to bring it back.
Okay.
Because I'm going to try to talk about one of their new global ambassadors. How about that? I don't know his name, but he's out on social media.
Okay.
And
what's this guy's deal?
Well, it goes back to something you and I have talked about in the past. And I'm going to bring up one of your favorite subjects, turkey teeth. You love turkey teeth, right?
Go. Yeah. Listen, that turkey teeth episode was one of the most fun I've ever had. And we'll link it in the show notes. I mean, what a phenomenon.
It is.
Yes, please explain the turkey teeth to
Yes,
people.
let's talk about our newfound friend, shall I say. And I'm going to pull this up. If you are watching on video, you will now see a gentleman who is showing off his new veneers. And he is talking about how happy he is, how wonderful they are, the best decision he's ever made. And you can see they're very white. I'm going to give him credit for that. And, there's the caption, best decision I've made getting natural looking veneers. And he talks about how he went to Turkey to get these veneers. Now, I just want, and I know not everybody who's listening to this can see this. So, Teresa, you have some good dental knowledge. How do you rate these veneers?
Monolithic.
Okay, monolithic.
So Stonehenge comes to mind. And I'm sure he's a lovely person. But
he seems very happy.
He does seem very happy. And he says the best decision I've made is getting natural looking veneers. And I'm waiting for the scene where it's natural looking veneers, because these are not natural looking veneers.
I agree.
And I feel for this guy because this makes him happy. And so I'm happy for him. But from a dental point of view, they are toilet bowl white, which they're not even really toilet bowl white. They're like toilet bowl white, but with a matte finish on them. So not like even shiny. So for the listeners who aren't on video, basically it just looks like somebody put the worst night guard you could come up with, made it really white and put it on there. I mean, I don't see any break in bite in the teeth structure. Like it really literally is one big block of yeah.
And so it's been interesting to me, because if you're seeing this on video, you'll see that this 30-second clip has 10.5 million views on X.
Oh, geez.
And then the comments are where I start.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah. I start having the poor guy. I mean, oh my God.
So listeners, some of this stuff is they're posting pictures of people like just totally making fun of this guy's teeth. So this is terrible.
Yeah. There are some that are saying, look, my life smiles better.
Mhm.
There's one, though, that I wanted to point out, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this because they're pointing out the back. You can still see that there are issues in the back.
Yeah, that
So the
actually
question,
looks like the veneers, they only went to number 12. It looks like number 13, it's still there for those of you who are dental. When he smiles big, you can actually see a stunted tooth back there. And I don't know why I'm leaning so hard to see the tooth. I just realized I'm leaning to see the tooth.
but,
So, yeah,
yeah,
wow.
then there's the classic Jim Carrey, with the asparagus in his teeth. But anyway,
Aw.
anyway, I'm going to stop sharing now because
This poor
the
guy.
the poor guy, he's very happy. He thinks this is the best decision I've ever made. And you know as well as I do, never put something on social media. And if you do, never read the comments because,
No.
wow.
And that's why it's important to have friends that will like pull you back and say, this
Yeah.
ain't it. Like, this ain't it, Chief. You got to take this down. So turkey teeth, for those of you that, why are we talking about turkey when this dude's from Australia? So the thing is, there's this trend, I guess it's still going on, that you can get good, cheap dental work in Turkey. Now, some of the Turkish dentists, I'm sure, are phenomenal. And I bet that there's probably a bunch of Turkish dentists on Instagram and on X that are like, come on, dude, like, what are you doing to us?
Right.
But there is a trend of them going to Turkey and then coming back with these teeth. So number one, they're called turkey teeth because some of the influencers that we covered were in such pain from going there and they couldn't even get the teeth seated. And so they ended up with seriously, vampire looking teeth. And so turkey teeth could mean two things really from what the articles we've done is, you get the teeth done and it's just not a good outcome, basically. This guy's pretty much, we're worried about losing Australia. Like Turkey and Australia are going to go to war over this guy.
It's very possible. And again, he thinks he looks good. And it really is, I think, in the eye of the beholder. If he's happy with it, great. And I'm sure he didn't pay what you would pay some of the cosmetic dentists that you and I know in the United States for those veneers either. I'm sure
because he's
about
a
that.
global ambassador. What does that mean? Global ambassador? You said that's what he is?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just was making that up. I
thought for sure he was like
no,
an official position. Okay.
No, I'm sure with the Aussie accent and everything and, getting over to Turkey, because he does mention that if you listen to what he has to say, and we'll put the link in the show notes if you have X. It's very interesting to me that the first thing I thought was, it's amazing how our patients come in and there are different levels of what they want and what they like versus what other people think are proper, if that makes sense.
Right.
And this was just that perfect example of this guy invested some money. He's happy with it. And obviously he might be in the minority with that thought.
So let me just put on my documentation hat here. So, in my insurance classes, I always talk about how we need to have a patient comment in our notes, like patient loved their bite, loves their whatever, is happy with the look or the shade. I think you need to definitely, if you did the work on this dude, I hope this Turkish doctor wrote down patient is thrilled, see post on X, for that, because if something were to happen and it went legal, of course it would only go legal here in the US because that's how we roll. If it went legal, you could at least point out, dude, this guy got 10 million views or whatever saying he loved his teeth. So there would be no case there. But there are people who are going to be very happy with their teeth. And then they're going to go home and somebody's going to say, what the heck did you pay for? And then they're going to come back and want it. So that's why your documentation's got to be key. But how many times have our listeners presented treatment to a patient and they're like, no, it's too expensive. But yet they jet off to another country and they're happy with work that certainly I don't think that they would get at any international competent dentist.
Absolutely. And yet they're willing to spend it because they see it's a good value because of the cost, but they don't see the good value of, you're stuck with these, for lack of a better term.
He's going to have to redo it, and that's going to be super expensive for
sure. Absolutely right. So, but no, it's a really good point about the documentation and making sure that if there's all of a sudden a social push for them to have it changed, that they signed off that it was good and they loved it before they ever left the practice.
It's a pretty concerning trend though, Kevin, because even Bicuspid has been covering the veneer techs.
Oh yeah.
Who have been operating
a big thing right now.
Yeah. And it's come up in my classes a couple of times where, a patient got the treatment plan and they went and tried to find somebody who could do it. And one girl told me that they came back because they couldn't find a veneer tech and they had heard. I'm like, what do you Google veneer tech? Like near me? Like what the heck? Right. So that is a big thing. is it getting a lot of hits on Bicuspid?
Oh yeah.
These veneer tech stories.
We have one gentleman in Texas, and won't mention his name because he's very sensitive about this, but I will, because we received numerous numerous letters from him and other people about it. But anyway, he advertises on TikTok, and there was a gentleman who flew in from a long ways away, had issues with the veneers, and because of that, he's been shut down by the Better Business Bureau. He also doesn't have a license in the state of Texas.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things wrong with this, but yet he's still advertising. His website is still up. He's still on social media, but there's also starting to be this huge backlash against him from people that are hearing the horror stories too. So it's a very interesting thing that, and we also reported on Dr. Bicuspid, there was a veneer tech who I believe worked in Las Vegas. She was busted there and all of a sudden showed up later in Chicago with the same business model and was busted there as well.
Teaching people. But was teaching people. She had a class going and she was teaching people. And one thing that's very interesting is say you're operating dentistry normally, right? And there have been cases where maybe you worked on the wrong tooth, something like that. And I have seen where there's been assault charges filed on a dentist for that. I mean, you've seen that too,
I've seen
right?
That. Yep.
So here's this dude in Texas, allegedly, I guess I'm not going to get sued, but allegedly doing this kind of stuff. How is that not assault? That you're taking an instrument and you're changing somebody under false pretenses. Like, that's got to be assault and fraud.
Well, probably it's just somebody hasn't thought about that yet, to be perfectly honest with you. I know in this one case, the gentleman is suing to get his money back and for damages as well, but there's nothing more than just the financial side of things. But you're absolutely right. If you don't have a license, I mean, that'd be the same as me chipping away at your teeth. I mean, I don't see where there's not some form of assault that could be, for sure. Allegedly.
Well, and allegedly, of course. And so I hope the state board's getting involved. And I hear alternate things. I hear sometimes the Texas State Board is very aggressive, and then I hear from other people that they let people get away with murder. So we're going to have to see what happens there.
As we record this, I am actually waiting for a call back from the Texas State Board because we are doing some follow-ups on this thing on Dr. Bicuspid. So people can be aware of that. And again, whenever we publish something on Dr. B about somebody doing something illegal, unethical, whatever it might be, I always want it to be a teaching moment. I always want it to be a don't do this, or beware if you're a patient, watch for this.
Sure.
So, but yeah, we are following up on that. So should be interesting.
So do you think when you call the state board, you think there's like a little bit of fear? The press is calling. Do you think you inspire fear?
Oh, I know I do. I'm so intimidating. Let's be perfectly honest here. I am, I'm the media. I'm Dr. Bicuspid. You better tell me the truth.
The mainstream media. That's right.
Here we are, baby. We're blowing this up. So
tooth explosions. So
all goes back to it.
It all goes back. I am so sorry, dear listeners, for exposing you to two new vocabulary words that I never want to know: barodontology, barometric pressure. And then let's go ahead and put this up here, or let me just say it again, because this is the word that needs to live on: Odontocrexis.
She's going to so drop that the next time I'm hanging out with Teresa at some dental meeting. She's going to be like, last time I was talking about Odontocrexis.
Can you imagine?
That's going to be the best mic drop moment ever.
I want to be an expert on this. I'm going to actually read it. So, world-renowned expert on Odontocrexis. One.
I'll put that in your bio on Dr. B anytime. Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, dear listeners, please get your restorations checked before you engage in any spatial activities, and be careful of turkey teeth. So not turkey. Turkey is a beautiful country, but be careful of what you come home with. Okay, so thank you so much for spending your time with us.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Chew on This. We hope you laughed and learned a little.
Check out the show notes for any links we mentioned, and don't forget to give us a rating on your podcast app. Feel free to drop us a comment on social media or by email if you have any suggestions for future topics.
We'll be back in about 2 weeks. See you then.